In eastern Ukraine you have this very industrial region called Donbass, quite Russian-speaking. A lot of Ukraine's heavy industry is located there, and with quite strong links to Russia. So when the crisis broke out in 2014, basically the Ukrainian government authority collapsed there, and after the annexation of Crimea in March 2014, these local activists started springing up and asking for autonomy for these two regions, for Donetsk and Lugansk. You had war breaking out between the Ukrainian government and these territories, which was basically, in military terms, a war between Kiev and elements of the Russian military. You then had two ceasefire agreements, a line of contact running across Ukrainian territory established, which basically cuts these regions in two. On the one side you have the rebel territories backed by Moscow, on the other side you have Ukrainian government territory, and this is continuing to this day. They're different in that sense from the other cases in my report, Abkhazia, Transnistria, Northern Cyprus, that these places are much more artificial. If there wasn't Russian support, they would collapse. A lot of the citizens really would like, I think, to go back to being part of Ukraine on some terms or other. So in that sense, I don't think these places are so sustainable. Also, these places are more like rogue states. They use the death penalty. They're very criminalized. They're not welcoming to international organizations. So they have much more of a kind of rogue status than the other cases. There's still fighting going on. People are still dying. There's this line that cuts across Ukrainian territory, and literally hundreds of thousands of people on either side who've been split apart by this conflict. And many of them are, up to 20,000 people a day sometimes are crossing this line, either to visit relatives or for economic reasons, or in a lot of cases because they still want Ukrainian documents, whether it be birth and death certificates, or in a lot of cases Ukrainian pensions. So you have this very artificial conflict, but a huge number of people affected by it, several million people affected by it. And on the other side of the line you have these sort of shadowy territories which call themselves independent states, but no one takes them very seriously. But they do control the territory, and they are not going back under the control of Kiev anytime soon. They've been forgotten, that Moscow doesn't really want them, is just using them as pawns, and yet the Ukrainian government really is not offering them very much either. Many of them don't want to go back to being ruled by Kiev, which is why I think the key conclusion from my study of this area of eastern Ukraine is that the Ukrainian government is not using a kind of hearts and minds policy to win back people in these territories. Many of them want to get pensions or birth and death certificates. They're crossing this line, but they have many difficulties in doing so, and have many obstructions in getting, bureaucratic obstructions about getting these Ukrainian documents. They're basically being told, we don't really want you, we don't really regard you as proper Ukrainian citizens.